Welcome to the You on the Camino de Santiago podcast. This podcast is for and about first-time pilgrims walking the pilgrimage routes in Spain, France, and Portugal. With your host, guide and longtime pilgrim, Nancy Reynolds of the Camino Experience. What happens when you want to walk the Camino, but you have a physical limitation that could prevent you from doing it? Well, in the case of today's guest, Richard, you just go do it anyway. Hi, this is Nancy, back with an inspiring pilgrim conversation filled with spiritual insight, courage, and determination. Talking with Richard reminded me how much I take for granted, with all my senses working and my body as able as it can be, 1 week away from turning 60. He also reminded me that there are gifts hidden in loss and trials, gifts that we can use to deepen our human experience and understand its universality. Richard and I spoke back in mid-July, just 2 days before he was boarding his flight for Europe. As this episode is going live, Richard has already reached Santiago after what he describes as an incredible experience. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Let's meet Richard. Richard, hi. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Welcome.
Hi, Nancy. Thank you for having me today.
I'm just so interested to hear your story, and I think you are going to inspire some people. Maybe some people who think they have reasons why they can't do the Camino. I think you're going to show us that maybe they can.
Yeah, perhaps. I'd like to
Yeah.
think that my story can be an inspiration to others, as others have inspired me, some of which have been on your podcast.
Oh, good. Yeah, there have been some inspiring people. It's such a pleasure to get to talk to people when they're taking on something so big. And for some people, there's some big obstacles to overcome to make this trip happen.
Certainly.
Yeah. Well, why don't we start where I always start, put the pin in the map. Will you share with us, please, your Camino plans?
Certainly. So I leave in about 48 hours to the airport. So I'll be flying into Biarritz, taking a train to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, and then proceeding on the Camino Frances to Santiago de Compostela. Currently, I'm anticipating 32 to 35 days.
Okay.
But I have built in a little extra time in case anywhere is calling to me in particular.
Oh, okay. So in case you find someplace you want to stay over and enjoy a little bit.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah. In my younger life, I might have been more of a Camino purist and kind of pushed through, and maybe I've forgotten to stop and smell the roses. So that's going to be an objective of mine for this journey.
Wonderful. So I'm curious about the phrase Camino purist. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I've heard it referenced a couple times in your podcast and elsewhere that it isn't technically one isn't technically a pilgrim if the backpack isn't carried the whole way, if albergues aren't the only form of accommodation for an evening, if parts of the route are skipped, if stages are omitted. And while I might have subscribed to that idea previously, I'm hoping I can retain or maybe look at this as an opportunity to embrace whatever I encounter, people I encounter, places, and just slow down and embrace it as I'm able.
I love that. We do talk about that, what it means to be a true pilgrim and a purist. I think that I have not said that's the way to do it. At least I hope not. Yeah, because I'm a firm believer in doing it the way that you can do it, the way that you want to do it, with also the disclaimer that doing it the way you just described, carrying your backpack and staying in the albergues, gives you a specific or a very, how do I say it, a different experience, right? And so it has its rewards that doing it a different way might not have those rewards. Will you be carrying your backpack or using luggage transport?
I will be carrying my backpack.
Okay.
And I expect to for the majority of the time, or potentially even all the time. It's that idea that I'm open now, especially from influences like your own, that the experience is my own.
Yeah. I always imagine a medieval pilgrim who, walking the trail and a cart comes up alongside him and says, "Hey brother, can I take your bag to the next village?" And he goes, "No, I'm a true pilgrim. I have to carry it."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now you might not give your bag to someone because you might be afraid they might steal it, but that's a different reason.
Yeah, certainly.
Now, how about for accommodations? Will you be staying in the albergues or different mix it up kind of options?
Yeah, so for the first few stages, I've already set up accommodation and I'll be staying in albergues until Pamplona,
Okay.
after which I haven't set any reservations and don't expect to until a day or two, maybe three before.
Okay.
So to get started, yes, albergues, but I would like to experience different options as I proceed. So I'm open to pensions, hostales, hoteles, whatever seems to be catching my attention at that point in time.
Wonderful. I think that's a true pilgrimage right there. Going with the flow and seeing what the Camino has for you. It's a beautiful way to do it.
Um,
Yeah. So let's talk about your reasons for walking the Camino. What was it that had you grab onto the idea, or what was the initial spark of, I think I'm going to do this thing?
yeah, so I traveled a lot of Europe in my early 20s and then studied it in Granada, Spain. And during that period of time, I encountered a number of pilgrims who I heard their stories and was inspired. And then this thing called life happened. I got back to the States, started with um, career and got distracted. I guess in retrospect, I now view it as a sort of maybe spiritual disconnect. I had this
Mm.
aspiration or this goal, and then life got in the way, and it became this sort of vague idea of something that might have been practical in those younger years, but might not have been at any point in time until recently. And so, as I mentioned to you, these last couple of years have been particularly challenging, but I found myself in a place where I have this freedom to realize this dream that I might have forgotten or set aside for a long period of time, but I'm now able, with the time and energy, to see it come to fruition.
Mm. You said you heard about it in your early 20s. Do you mind saying how old you are or what decade you're in?
Certainly, I'm 36 currently.
Okay. All right. Some people do wait decades before they get this thing on the calendar. So high marks. You're hitting it before 40. I'm going to just give you high marks for that. You mentioned the phrase spiritual disconnect. I wonder if you would say more about that and what that means to you.
Yeah, so I know many others, and I myself for sure became very engaged in professional life and developing
Mm.
this career. And I just naturally was very productivity and achievement oriented. So I had all these very external goals, these things that I thought this was the next step, and to achieve the step after that, well, I had to work like this, and have all these, put all these behaviors and habits in place to just achieve that next step without really recognizing that there weren't different tracks I could maybe elect to pursue.
Mm.
And so with that, I lost a lot. There was maybe my spiritual practices, often yoga and meditation for me, connecting with community, doing things like this, just setting out on a pilgrimage, just wouldn't have been on my radar during that period
Yeah.
of time. And while perhaps in any given moment, it didn't feel like I was necessarily disconnected from all those things or myself, as I look back, I'm seeing more and more how there was this progression that was taking place. And now I have this kind of opportunity to, yeah, maybe select a different track and
Mm.
they could take full advantage of an opportunity to see this through.
Wow. Yeah. We do get so focused, particularly in I would say our late 20s, early 30s. We get focused on career or we get focused on family, and we just get laser focused, really. We get really intent on making something happen or building something, and we can walk away from those other things. Yeah. Yoga and meditation, I love those as spiritual practices. Is that something that you traveled for or something that you discovered in your backyard? Not literal backyard, but
Yes. So they've been constants of mine since I was about 20. So they started right about the time that I was contemplating the Camino
huh.
amongst other goals. And so I've taken yoga teacher training and I've
Mm.
attended numerous silent meditation retreats, various lengths, 4, 5, 10 days. And yeah, it's been a big part of my life in this last decade and a half. Yeah, and I don't expect that to change anytime soon.
Well, you have a very Zen-like presence. You feel very grounded to me as we're talking. It really feels like you're right here with me. It's lovely.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I can really sense it. Yeah, and I imagine that it has served you well, given what's been going on and what I would love to talk about next if you're willing to.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so you said something happened a couple years ago. Would you share with us the details of that?
Yeah, definitely. So a little over 2 years ago, I suffered a health event that essentially didn't blind me completely, but I lost a significant amount of my vision. So my central vision at that point disappeared, and my periphery was very damaged for a long period of time. That essentially made me reliant on others, family, friends, and various social services to really get by for a period of time. And for somebody who lived his life largely independent, autonomous in any way I really could imagine during those periods of my life, I had to take a step back and take some time to heal and learn how to live life differently. And so the condition was diagnosed as permanent. So my central vision is still completely gone. I call it gray and shimmery, and it's kind of like a disco ball, just a lot less fun.
Doesn't have a good beat, and we don't want to dance to it.
It lacks the beat. I still dance to it now and then, but I do everything with it now there essentially. So,
Oh,
so with the loss of that vision that's been diagnosed as permanent, I've had to
wow.
use various measures to adapt, I guess.
Would you help me out by defining what that means, central vision versus peripheral vision?
Yeah. So if anyone's familiar with macular degeneration, I believe it sort of mimics that experience. So wherever I look, there's a large space that I just simply cannot see. And so
Mm.
I can't just look to my left and then be able to see over there and not where my head facing forward would be able to see. It moves with the direction of my vision.
Okay.
So essentially, I have to use my periphery to be able to discern any detail and navigate the world.
Wow. So I'm thinking, for example, when I'm driving and I see something out of the corner of my eye, it sounds like what you have is only what's out of the corner of your eye.
Exactly.
Oh my
Exactly.
gosh.
So I don't drive anymore.
Yeah, I
Needless.
would imagine not.
Yeah.
That's a really significant game changer.
It's been a challenge in some ways that I wouldn't have expected.
Hmm.
Like I mentioned, I've had to learn how to ask for help and be reliant on others, and it's taught me a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Would you be willing to share some of the lessons that it's taught you?
absolutely. Kind of like I already touched upon, there's that need to ask for help when it's necessary. And I believe I'll really be embracing that as I go on the Camino, as perhaps many males and others in this Western culture were was largely conditioned with this idea that asking for help was somewhat of a weakness,
Yeah.
not one that resonated or still resonates strongly with me, but it is part of the culture. And so there was something of a resistance going through this experience and recognizing that there really was no way forward except to just ask for some aid when it was necessary.
Mm.
With that, I've had to, I guess I haven't had to, but it's behooved my well-being and state of mind to learn to slow down and just take my time because often things just take so much longer than it used to.
Sure.
Menial tasks, just reading a page, just figuring out how to get to a place, public transportation, really pretty much every task in my life takes a little longer, and I can either see friction in that or aversion to that or accept it for what it is. And so it's been a lesson in patience and acceptance. With all that, I I believe there's a degree, or not just a degree, a great amount of compassion that I've developed as a person who was always able-bodied, and didn't have hurdles like this on a day-to-day basis. I've been able to recognize and gain that compassion for others who may have similar conditions or just similar obstacles that affect the day-to-day life and minute by minute, hour by hour experience. And that would be different from others.
Sure. Seems like this would minimally be very disorienting.
Yes, yes. Disorienting in many ways. There's a joke with friends and family about the confusion that comes with the experience. And the confusion can be not being able to read facial features, or the label on a can of food, or
Yeah.
knowing exactly what a street sign says when I'm trying to find my way. So
Yeah.
disorienting, I think, would be a good word for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to just imagine everything that we do in the course of a day without thinking about it. It's so second nature. We just function with our vision. And then to have that disrupted, yeah, it's almost mind-boggling. And I'm not going through it, right? So going through it is mind-boggling times 1 million to have to figure this out.
Yeah, mind-boggling. It's funny. I've been saying more recently that oftentimes it feels like I'm coming out of the lighter side of the tunnel.
Mm.
That for much of that first year, especially, it just felt like everything was just impossible. That as though everything was like learning a new skill.
Hmm.
I remember the first months I went from that independence, autonomy that I mentioned, to just trying to figure out how to put the right amount of toothpaste in the toothbrush. And it just drove me
Yeah.
bonkers, just not being able to do that, the very simple task.
Simple stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So much that we take for granted.
Yeah. So there's an appreciation and maybe a greater level of gratitude for what I do have at this point in the lighter side of the tunnel.
Yeah. And there was a dark side of the tunnel, wasn't there?
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've suffered from depression for much of my adult life,
Mm.
and I am comfortable in sharing that it was a very dark time
Yeah.
for a long period, and there are days that are still quite difficult.
Yeah.
Again, that lighter side of the tunnel is quite a gift, and all that much more of a gift for having experienced those more difficult times.
Oh, boy, just the resilience of the human spirit right here on display. Just, oh, that's courage, man. That is strength and courage right there.
Thank you. Appreciate
Yeah. And then you're going to go walk the Camino. So it's not like you're
it.
just going to stay safely at home and not ever venture out of your newly defined comfort zone, but you're going to travel internationally and go walk the Camino.
I am. I am so
Uh-huh.
excited.
Yeah. So I don't know. For some people, they might be going, well, that doesn't sound like a good idea. But for you, it is a good idea. Would you share sort of what your thought process was on how you're going to be this version of Richard, this Richard without sight or without full sight?
Yeah.
I'll use the word foreseeing. What are you anticipating about your that your Camino experience will be like?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first it came with a long period of sort of retraining myself. And so learning to live life with my peripheral vision. And so that first year, it started with just different exercises, using my periphery to maybe look at playing cards on a table and see how many I could recognize and distinguish, or just going up and down my driveway once I got more comfortable with getting outside and navigating life. Then, over the course of that year, I found myself more and more able to, say, navigate city streets and feel comfortability and recognizing, hey, when a light is red, when the crosswalk is on, and learning to just recognize So for my vision, there's recognition of contrast, especially when I'm out and about and on, say, trails or streets. So I very distinctly can still see contrast, and I've become a little more hyper aware of that as opposed to I would have seen finer detail before. But after all that year of training, I was able to get out onto trails, and at the beginning, definitely in the company of friends. But as I became more comfortable, I actually traveled internationally on a yoga retreat this last year, which would have been overwhelming just a
Sure.
year and a half ago,
Yeah.
even less time than that. But airports, I've learned to embrace that idea that asking for help is always an option.
Yeah.
There's I guess, a comfort or maybe resilience of just maybe not understanding everything that's going on, and just knowing that it will work out okay. And I've taken enough trips and been out and about on my own, living independently again, which I was not able to do immediately
Yeah.
after the vision loss. I've really sort of reclaimed all these areas of my life that for this period of time I had to learn to, well, I had to recognize that I wasn't able to complete them on my own, and
Yeah.
even grieve over the fact that I might never be able to do these things because the initial diagnosis was that was the high likelihood. So yeah, it came with day by day, month by month, and now year by year process of becoming ever
Yeah.
more comfortable with this reality and learning to trust myself again. I think has been one of the largest lessons I've gleaned out of these last couple of years.
Ah, it still looks courageous to me. I'm just going to stick with that.
I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah. So you've gotten used to your environment and you've developed some skills that help you interact with and understand any environment. And so those skills are just going to be transferable, I imagine, to the Camino.
Certainly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are, I guess, like even apps, the assistive technology that I've become more and more comfortable in using that allow me to say read a menu, or if I really need to, I can take a photo of a street sign and be able to zoom in far enough that my periphery is able to discern the word.
Okay.
And attuning into other senses, I think, is something that it has been, I guess, instrumental in this comfort that I've developed over this time. I'm far more attuned to my hearing and than I was previously. And while people often ask if it's become stronger, my other senses have gained in strength. I believe I'm more just able to attune directly to a specific sense and sort of recognize the limitations of vision. So yeah, there is compensation in that way as well.
Huh. Okay. So if somebody meets you on the Camino,
Mhm.
when someone meets you on the Camino, how will they know that you have this vision loss? Do you carry one of the canes?
Canes. So I do not carry a cane, and this has been a
Okay.
question I've come across from time to time. So it's an interesting situation because I don't pose any danger to myself by getting around. I have no real need to carry it that I've found. I've been able
Okay.
to navigate everything comfortably without it. However, it does pose some kind of odd social situations because outwardly others wouldn't know that if they're looking at me and I'm looking back at them, as it appears I am, that I can
Yeah.
see them and know that they're making eye contact or some facial expression. So there is sometimes I have to clarify that, hey, I really can't see your phone if you're trying to show me some information, or hey, yeah, you're trying to show me this or that, and I really have no idea what's happening here. And there is kind of an odd moment that often ends up somewhat comically because they'll ask, "Whoa, you can't see me, and you can't see this," and I just kind of have to laugh with them and say, "Yeah, it's pretty weird, but no, I,
That's what we've got right now.
yeah." So no, I don't carry any cane, but I found that oftentimes people aren't even aware that I'm low vision
Okay.
unless something comes up, and then I definitely clarify to just to let them know I'm not being rude or not making eye contact for, just blowing them off or and disregarding them. But this is what's going on.
Oh, okay. Well, I think you're going to have some amazing interactions on the trail, and I think you're going to inspire a lot of people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would hope.
A really key part of the Camino experience that many people report on is meeting other people and hearing their stories and just discovering what people go up against when they decide to make this journey. And there are people with all kinds of physical challenges, and there are people with broken hearts from losing people they love, and, all kinds of loss and things that people are working through. And sometimes just life, working through the challenges of life take a lot. And when people come home from the Camino and they tell stories, they tell their stories, but they also go, and we met this guy, and he this, and this, and they tell these stories with such love and appreciation. And I just have a feeling that your story is going to spread and people are going to be talking about you.
Oh, that actually almost has brought a little tear to my eye.
Yeah, me too. As I say it, it, we have such an opportunity to inspire each other and be blessings to each other. And
Yeah,
I think yeah, a lot of people are going to be blessed by meeting you on the trail.
yeah.
Yeah,
I find those human connections as just one of life's greatest gifts. And
yeah,
so in my travels and prior to vision loss and after, I mean, people hold such knowledge and wisdom that I think there's so much to be learned from one another, and having this sort of space where everybody's embarking on a journey for their own reasons and in their own experience, and yet
yeah,
doing it with the whole collective. I think that's pretty incredible, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
yeah. And I think there's also an element that sometimes we get caught up in I'll call it drama, but just the challenge of everything it takes to get started on the Camino and get yourself there. And I know I can get caught up in my own story of, oh my gosh, it's so hard and this, that, and And then to meet someone like you and go, this isn't hard. Stop it. Just get right back to my center of, you know what, I have so much to be grateful for. And that's a gift that you give me is to know that someone like you is doing this and can inspire me to just stop complaining about anything.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah, you got a lot of gifts to give, Richard.
Well, I have to say, so before the vision impairment, I was largely, I didn't have a photographic memory by any means, but I did have visual recall that was very strong. And so
Ah,
with this shift, I've been learning how to better internalize and remember information with auditory recall. And
mhm.
so reading the guidebooks and seeing these articles online, it's very challenging for me to navigate and retain. However, your podcast has actually just been my primary source of information these last several months, because you've gone
Wonderful.
through all the steps of the process in such a methodical way and saying it so concisely, oftentimes, and with such deliberation, perhaps.
Mm,
I've been able to retain it and have just been able to really develop my own journey from the information you've shared. So I thank you for sharing all
mm.
your experience.
That makes me happy. Thank you. Thanks for saying that. Yeah. Yay. Mm. All right. Well, as you were talking, I was thinking about, when someone holds the phone up and goes, here, look at this photo, or look where we were, and here's all the people who were at dinner. And it got me wondering, will you be taking photos? Is that going to be part of how you document your journey?
It's funny because though devices and reading and all that is more of a challenge now, photos allow me to actually see scenery, people, anything with more distinction, because on a
Ah,
device I can zoom in and make out the features on somebody's face. I've had
mm.
experiences where people have sent me photos, and I'll respond, I'm sure these are lovely people and I might know them, but who are these individuals? And they'll say, well, this is so and so. And so actually having photos visually allows me to connect with different environments a little more. So
Okay.
I'll certainly be taking photos. Yeah, I'll be taking photos for the practical and just for the sake of sentiment and memories.
Yeah. Yeah, because an important part I think is recording the journey so that you have it to go back to later. And so whatever photos you take or whatever whatever way that you document your journey, I ask it just because as a default, we take photos and look at photos and scroll through photos and copy photos and send photos. And yeah, it seems like, wait a minute, now I have to think about that a little bit. But I love that you say it actually helps you to have a photo of something.
Yeah.
My dad had macular degeneration rather severely. And I
Mm.
remember, watching him try to, okay, I'm going to find what I can see. I can't see a lot of it, but and just the determination to hold on to what we can. It's just, and to find ways to make it work is so
Yeah,
admirable.
certainly. Yeah. And I also have this intention to perhaps get a little clip of a voice recording our conversation with a potential Camino family and
Mm.
friends that I meet on the road, on the trail. And so I'm hoping to at least collect a few of those types of conversations for reflection later on.
That's a wonderful idea. Yeah, I've heard of people who do that, who record people's stories as they go. I've often thought of doing that too, record them for the podcast and share live from the trail kind of stories. But yeah, people's voices are so distinct that that will also trigger all of those wonderful memories of, oh yeah, I was here and I met this person.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And for me, who I often recognize people by their voice or if they have some physical characteristics, say they're 6.5 feet tall or
Yeah,
always wear the same neon yellow shirt or something. Unless they don't have something like that happening, I often recognize a voice after a period of time.
sure, sure. So when you think about this whole journey, is there any question that you haven't yet been asked that you'd just really like to be asked about your journey?
I think the question would be related to my intention around the Cruz de Ferro, the
Mm,
Iron Cross, and it's related to much of my purpose in going on this pilgrimage. So, grief has been amongst the most challenging and I would say beautiful experiences in my life. Beautiful in the fact that I once had this person in my life, or I once knew love to such a degree that I felt the absence of it. And so the loss of numerous family and friends in
yeah.
my teens and 20s, it was a challenge. It still is a challenge. And letting go of burden to me is just such a beautiful concept. And I've made gestures to that effect, to letting go of that grief. And yet it's ever developing. We're humans with these experiences and with these ongoing losses that will inevitably take place throughout life. And I hope to visit the Cruz, and I have a piece from my childhood that was during a period of a lot of trauma that I've carried with me throughout my teen, more adult years. And for me, it represents this sort of building relationship with trauma. And it's hard to explain exactly why. It's just, it's this memento from all this period of time. And I'm really, I built this sort of recognition that it will be an item that will be powerful for me to both physically and emotionally have this moment with at the
Hmm.
cross. And so I'm very much looking forward to that. And in addition to that idea of grief, a friend of mine passed about a decade ago now of leukemia at a very young age. And there was a friend of hers who actually walked the Camino in to honor her. And at various points along the way, they left these little bracelets to remember this friend. And I just met with this friend's mother just this last week, and she's getting me a couple of these bracelets, and one of which I'll be wearing along the way, just to reflect on what that relationship meant and still means for me, and to, yeah, maybe take a step forward in processing that grief and in further honoring her memory in a way that is loving rather than, I guess, mulling over or feeling the more difficult side. I could see the bracelet that I'll be carrying for this friend as just a simple and symbolic way to remember her. And she went through so much pain and trial at such a young age that I just revere her memory. And so doing this in part in her memory, it just means a lot to me. And so I'll take some time at the cruise to reflect and perhaps take a gesture toward unburdening myself a lot of the grief that I've held on to.
Beautiful. Yeah. There certainly is a lot of symbolism at the cross. When you physically set something down, it carries with it that the motion, right? The energy and the motion of release. Yes, it's a really beautiful time. Yeah, people report incredibly poignant experiences at the cross.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
Packing has been a interesting and wonderful experience as I'm used to backpacking. So I am used to
Yeah.
carrying 40 to 50 pounds on my back. And so cutting that down significantly has been enjoyable.
Enjoyable for real or enjoyable?
Enjoyable for real in the sense
Yeah.
that
Okay.
I'm just used to having to prepare for more extremes, I guess, and not
Ah,
having the
okay.
infrastructure and the resources, stores, carrying food for multiple days, that kind of thing. And so,
Okay.
not having to maybe, yeah, not having to prepare for maybe every eventuality is just something of a different experience. So I
Sure.
typically have that sleeping bag and warm weather gear and tent and everything else that comes with that. So
Yeah, you'll get to travel lighter this time.
definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Well, are there any questions I can answer for you?
Yeah, I was actually thinking for me and for others who might have low vision, much of what I see is color and contrast and some shapes, I guess. So I was curious. I know here, I live here in Seattle, and I can recognize a lot of stores and signs and facilities based on those features, the
Mhm.
shape, the color, and the contrast. I was curious as to whether there are any things like that to look out for along the Camino that would be services provided, restrooms, maybe a certain type of store with that color, shape, or contrast that I'd look out for on the Camino Frances.
Hmm. I'm honestly not quite sure how to answer that. What would be useful to you? What type of information would be useful to you?
And so I know you've mentioned like petrol stations, I think
Mm-hmm.
in a previous podcast.
Mm-hmm.
There would even be maybe even like road signs or some kind of sign that would indicate direction or a divergence of trails, perhaps. Are there colors that might differ from those in the States? The simple one that
Mm.
comes to mind would be red for stop sign, and seem to remember Alto is present in Spain.
Yes. Okay. I understand the question more now. Yeah. So fortunately, stop signs as the example is universal. So that's easy. One thing comes to mind, and that would be the trail markers. You probably have heard about the yellow arrows.
Mhm.
The yellow arrows mark the direction that you are to walk. And there also are stone markers that probably come up to, waist height at the most, I think. Of course, that depends on how tall you are. I'm not that tall. So they come maybe waist high, and they're stone markers that have a scallop shell and an arrow on them. And sometimes they're tiles with the scallop shell and the arrows, and sometimes they're painted. And so that is a navigational thing to look for, are those stone markers. And you've probably seen photos of them somewhere along the way. Another sort of visual thing to look for, a lot of places that serve food will have out in front, they'll have tables and chairs. And so when you see tables and chairs that look like they're either right in the street or in the plaza, that's usually a place that serves food and beverages and also a source for Wi Fi.
Perfect. Yeah.
And then some of them will also have sandwich boards out front that tell you what they're serving. So if you see a sandwich board out front that says there's food now.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're usually open if there's a sandwich board out front, like a chalkboard that they've written things on in the shape of a
Mhm.
sandwich board.
That sounds great.
And then in terms of how Spain is set up, every town and village, just about every village, but certainly every city has a plaza mayor or a main square. And so those are good places to use as sort of orientation. They're sort of the center of the town or the city. And every town has a church, every city has a cathedral. And so those are also good things to sort of keep in mind for, okay, I'm in the center and I'm probably really close to the Camino Trail.
It makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little bit off what you asked, but I'm trying to think of how I can give you some information that might be useful.
Yeah, it certainly is.
Yeah.
I would ask, is there any common trait that albergues have as opposed to maybe pensions or the parador, different lodging?
See, this is an interesting question because as a fully sighted person, I don't even think about it. So this really is a poignant example. of how fortunate and privileged I am, really, to not have to think about this. So I want to think about it and give you a good answer.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. Take your time.
Albergues will have the word albergue out front.
Mhm.
So that's helpful. They do use the word hotel or hostal or, whatever they are. Hotels are often a standalone building. So a hotel is the building is a hotel or the entire ground floor is a hotel. An albergue is often a standalone as well, whereas a pension is oftentimes somebody's home that they turned into guest rooms. So it won't be the building is the pension. There'll be a small sign that says pension.
Oh, that's useful. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one difference.
Yeah, I actually just thought of this question a day or two ago. I was trying to take into consideration what others with low vision might encounter on the trail, and which might be
Yeah.
difficult in a different culture and country.
Yeah. Well, what I'd love to do is have you come back on the podcast when you come back
Yeah,
and you can share your answers to those questions. That would be really useful to me as a podcast host and a guide, but I bet also to my listeners. That would be really helpful.
certainly. I'd love to.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Any other questions I can answer for you?
What I've often found is that I recognize more than I can see. I don't know, things tend to make sense in context. So a sign will tend to make sense if it is sitting by a standalone building, and if the font is really big white letters,
Yes.
probably a hotel. Or
Yes. Yes.
um, so
Yeah, the thing is they want you to find them. That's the important thing to know is places to stay, they want you to find them. So sometimes you'll just see a sign that says albergue with an arrow pointing you which side street to go down.
mhm,
So those are good things to look for.
yeah,
Yeah. So when you're talking about finding things and recognizing things, do you have any technology or any tools that you use to make that easier for you?
yeah, definitely. These last couple of years, I found a couple of apps in particular that have been very useful. The first of which is called Seeing AI. So, in
Okay.
whichever app store someone might have, the app is Seeing AI.
Okay.
And within that app, I just have the free version. I believe there is a version that can be purchased as well. But the one that I have has all the functions that I need to, say, take a photo of a document that takes all the text, and then I can play it back with a text to voice, or which is often available in, say, I have an iPhone, so Apple has
Okay.
plenty of options for accessibility when it comes to vision. So I'm able to have all the content read back, and that's actually how I've been reading through the guidebook. I'll use
Okay.
Seeing AI, which captures all of the information, and then I'll just have it read back to me. So I absorb the physical book almost like an audiobook. In addition to that, there's another app called Be My Eyes. I haven't used it for some time as I've become more adept in using my periphery, but essentially it connects a low vision person or one who needs assistance with somebody who can use the camera on that individual's phone to see a room or a place and guide the person with low vision. So
Mm.
I would connect myself to a person on the other end. They would be connected to my camera to Be My Eyes, which is the name of the app. And so essentially, they're able to see what I'm seeing.
Okay.
I would be able to point my camera and they would be able to advise me how to proceed, where this thing is located. And so there's some neat technology. And then last, I think we touched upon it, photos. So I
Yeah.
often take photos and then just zoom in. It's a quick way to see a little bit more detail that doesn't require a lot of extra effort to, yeah, get a better read on things.
Yeah. I bet we could line up some people who would love to be your eyes on the Camino. If you were to
Certainly,
use that app. All right, Richard, we
definitely.
are in. Oh, I know where we are. We're in Estella. And if you go to the left, there's this. And yeah, I bet we could have some fun with that.
Oh, that's a lot of fun. I
That
like
would
it.
be really fun. Yeah. We've talked about some practical things, but I'm also kind of curious about things from a spiritual perspective because you said that you do a lot of yoga and meditation. is there part of that or the spirituality of that you're taking with you to the Camino? And how does that fit into your experience?
Yeah. So in my preparation, I've taken some time to set intention around my journey, and I don't necessarily identify with Catholicism, though I do find faith and religion in general to be beautiful. I typically lean more towards Buddhism, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, and will be doing my daily yoga and meditation. Maybe not so much yoga, but I do take time to reflect on a daily basis. So I'll likely be sitting in meditation for a time each day. And with that practice, be it early in the morning or when I find some space at a midday break, wherever I find it, I won't lose that spiritual practice. And so what I have found is I sort of reconcile the difference between my spiritual intent and the Catholic roots and this particular pilgrimage is that at the basis of my foundation, I believe that every source of faith is in fact beautiful. And so getting to walk in the shoes of others who have for 1,200 years sought this journey in search of self-discovery, in search of truths, these greater understandings of their lives and of this world, I see very little difference between my spiritual philosophies and those of others who've walked before me. I believe there is a universality of this human experience, and while each being possesses one's own system of beliefs, relationships, understanding of this life, I feel that there are these truths that we all share. And so getting to celebrate them in this fashion is just such a unique and wonderful experience. And I'm very much looking forward to that.
Is walking meditation part of your practice?
It is, yes.
Yeah.
I haven't practiced it as frequently as I had in the past.
Okay.
However, I've been on a meditation retreat or two recently where I have integrated walking meditation, and that bilateral movement and the experience of walking often produces a lot of insight, a lot of peace, even stillness in that movement. There's a mental and spiritual stillness that I believe is cultivated in the act of walking.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a tremendous opportunity here to take your spiritual practice on the road, quite literally.
Exactly.
Yeah. Beautiful. I think you have an incredible journey ahead of you. And I really can't wait to hear from you
Thank
how it
you.
goes.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Nancy. Yeah.
All right. Any final words before we wrap up?
I don't believe so. I just want to say
Okay.
thank you so much for all the information you've shared, for having your podcast. And it's just been so wonderful to kind of share in your experiences and learn how to prepare for my own. So
It's my pleasure. Yeah,
thank
it's my
you.
pleasure. Yeah. All right. So I guess that's it for now.
All right.
I wish you a beautiful journey. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.